Hello, everybody. It is Monday, June 29th. Oh my goodness, we're almost halfway through 2020. Complicated feelings. Um, I'm Tony Bacigalupo. It's your Q&A for New York Cities. I've got Justin, Meredith, and Maddie here, and we're just talking about 4th of July plans. And um, yeah, so much. God, I feel like uncertainty is the most overused word of the year. Uh, but a lot to navigate. Let's get into just checking in, see where everybody's at, see where everybody's head's at, see what we want to talk about today. Meredith, I'll start with you, then we'll go to Justin and Maddie. Take it away, Meredith, and remind us, who you are, where you are, what's going on. Just give us a
Yeah.
little status update.
Hey everybody, I'm Meredith Moore. I'm community manager at a space called Base 110. We're in Lexington, Kentucky. We are slowly trying to pivot and change and, survive during all of this. This week we hit our next phase. So Kentucky is continuing to kind of reopen. So now it is gatherings of 50 or less. So we're slowly starting to see, how that fits into our space and what we need to do. My focus has been primarily on figuring out our new offerings and how to market them. Because we opened up a brand new floor March 1, and then everything hit, and then we had plans for a secondary space, which has been pushed to later in the year. So we're trying to pivot and see how we can kind of just be business smart about it and still get some work done, but be very conscious of this constantly uncertain ecosystem.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. We will definitely talk more in more detail about the specifics of that because I think that's very relevant to what a lot of people are trying to figure out right now. Thank you, Meredith. Justin, welcome. So once again, so great to have you back.
Yeah. Justin Powers, Kernville Cowork. We're this tiny little mountain community in the Southern Sierras in California. And so we're a little bit unique in that we, most co-working spaces are in big cities where you have a large population. But what we're trying to do is to hashtag work where you play. We want people to that would normally come up here to recreate and take advantage of all our awesome outdoor opportunities to rather than stay 2 or 3 days, maybe have a place they can work out of, so they can spend 10 days or 20 days, and then maybe eventually they'll decide they want to move here, and while still collecting their paychecks from the big cities, and that's just a direct economic injection into our community. Some of the things we're seeing, we've kind of opened up our pricing, especially for student discounts. We're seeing a lot of students that are unable to go back to school physically, and they're needing a quiet place to work out of that's not like their old bedroom in their parents' house. We're definitely seeing an influx of people that are just wanting to leave the big city, wanting to live somewhere where they can have better work-life balance. We're seeing definitely this huge trend of people all of a sudden realizing that they don't need to live in the same place where their company's office is, and the companies are discovering they don't need to have all their employees in this one physical office. So we're seeing a lot of people that are starting to take that freedom and move into places like this. I've been seeing like just a lot of people actually buying houses up here and moving up here because now their companies are allowing them to work remotely. So since we last talked, I randomly got invited to a webinar called "The Future of Co-working," specifically to be a panelist, specifically the future of co-working in Kern County. And I think that's one of the things that I'm going to try to pitch during this panel discussion is that right now, what would be good for Kern County is to encourage a lot of these remote workers, which are kind of naturally going to gravitate towards co-working, and having a vibrant co-working community also is a perk for people that are wanting to move out of the city and find a place with better cost of living, better
Sure.
quality of life. depending on what your parameters are. So, so yeah, it's going to be the kind of the thing is, this thing happens tomorrow. It all came together kind of fast, but it'll be an interesting discussion.
Super great, Justin. I feel like there's got to be some opportunity in, I don't know, kind of what the status is like in LA, but I feel like a lot of New Yorkers are taking this as an opportunity to kind of piece out of town and look for options outside of the big cities. Are you catching any of that sentiment at all?
Absolutely. I mean, it happened relatively early with people just looking to spend the weekend up here. Like normally we've got like Memorial Day weekend is a huge weekend, 4th of July is a huge weekend. We've had Memorial Day traffic every single weekend. Like we'll get 1 million people up here in a season, and we probably surpassed that a week or two ago. And we're just we're still in the midst of summer. So, but then we're also seeing people, wanting. LA is kind of the big one. People are wanting a piece out of LA, find a way of moving up here. And I think having a co-working space kind of becomes an attractive part of the package. It actually helps them kind of explain it to their, to their manager a little better. Hey, I'll be able to be effective. I'll be able to work because I won't be like sitting on my couch working. I'll have this
Right.
co-working space that I can be effective out of.
Right, exactly. And so I'm thinking that there's a real opportunity there to make a very specific case to that market because the timing is there.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I've always struggled with is I know exactly how to make the case and how to phrase it and all that thing, but how do we get the word out specifically to those people? Like how do you find those people in LA that are looking to move, and how do you kind of target them directly?
Right. Yeah. So that's something I'm curious about for sure. So maybe we can get kind of into that. Okay, cool. Let's kind of circle back to it because I think there's
Yeah.
probably some rich opportunities there. Cool. All right. And how about Maddie? Maddie, kind of building on what Justin was saying, just remind us who you are, where you are, kind of what's on your mind, what's in your world. Oh, hang on. I can't hear you. I don't know why. You don't show as muted on my end, so I'm not sure what it could be.
You might have to go into your
Do.
hold
I always love when somebody in one screen can show up in the other screen.
How about now?
Yes.
Yes.
Bingo.
My headphones aren't working, but I can use that.
Awesome. Wow,
So
who's
I'm
quick with
Maddie
this?
Howard. I work for Justin Powers at Kernville Co-work. I do event coordinating and marketing, and it's actually a pretty busy morning. I'm working on marketing that future of co-working roundtable that Justin mentioned because they just sent us information on Friday, and I don't work Fridays. So I'm trying to get the word out about that and get it going so that we can get a lot of people involved with that. What else? I'm working on creating business partnerships within the Valley. So using other small businesses to hype them up here and then them hype us up there. There's only one other small business in town that has Wi-Fi for their customers. It's a coffee shop. So we can definitely be helpful there. And then just marketing ourselves to like campgrounds so that we can put together packages. We're working on that. So like someone that say maybe would only come up for a weekend because they have to go back to work or go back to whatever can now have a package with the campground and with us for a lower price so that they can stay longer and also work from here. So that's something we're working on as well.
Got it. Very cool. Yeah. All right. Excellent. Excellent. I feel like you guys, you're in a position to really capture a lot of the momentum of what's happening because, again, people want to be outside. They want to kind of make a shift right now, get out of the cities where they feel oppressed. And if you can really like hook into that marketing, I feel like there's no shortage of opportunity. So super exciting. Welcome. Um, great. So I think there's this general kind of thread that I know more than just the folks on this call are thinking about, which is how do we adjust the messaging and how do we adjust the offerings to account for where we're at right now? And we're in kind of an awkward place right now because, as we've talked about in previous calls, there's that spectrum of engagement, and some people are in bunkers, and some people think it's a hoax, and there's everybody in between. And we might have this fluctuating number of people who are able to physically meet in person, or who are comfortable physically meeting in person. Not to mention this kind of fluctuating like legal framework of we can open, we might have to close again. Like we don't really know all of the details. So what I'm curious about is how we can um, get a better understanding of who our market is and what exactly their needs are, and create offerings that accommodate the changing circumstances, knowing that we can't exactly predict where it's all going to fall. And in my mind, I think that comes down to finding a way to create or emphasize an existing offering which can be independent of the specifics of any particular circumstances at any given time. And then if people want to engage or are able to engage in a more substantial way, then they can do so. So that's, in my mind, comes back to kind of that entry level membership or that basic membership, and then some extremely straightforward but valuable engagement that you can do with people that maybe isn't, that can be done either in person or online or some combination of the two, right? And so then you can basically continue to have people paying you to be customers, whether they're coming into the physical space or not, because they're getting value out of that, at the very least, out of that basic level, if not in a more substantial way. Um, and then if there's more substantial engagement that can be had through physical gathering, then so be it, and great, and hopefully we can have more of that. But I feel like that general framework makes sense. So maybe to come back to Meredith with that in mind, can you remind us, Meredith, kind of what your membership levels are currently, and especially on the entry level end, like how does somebody kind of enter your community in the most lightweight way?
So the predominant way we've been getting members is through our private offices. So we are lucky to have the majority of our space being private offices. So we're working to utilize that in various sizes. So that's probably the most popular. But then we have the co-work membership. And then we have the like virtual office, so your business address. And then during all of this, we did a remote work from home membership. So the most successful ones are going to be your kind of like 24/7 co-work access or the private offices. We also have events and meeting space, but that kind of varies in usage as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So if I'm like, hopefully the private office thing is going to be on the table for a while, and that's like, you know, and what's the status of the private offices right now from a sales perspective?
So we've hit a little bit of a snag. So, I mean, we've been consistently open, so anybody with a private office could always, if they felt comfortable, still utilize their space. During March, April, May, we only had a very slight decrease in memberships. We unfortunately got news, I think, a week ago that one of our larger member bases, which is a remote, kind of like a satellite office of a larger corporation, is dropping. Because company-wide they made the decision to go remote, and they're not willing to sustain those types of the space. So that was kind of a little bit of a kick to us this week, because they basically had a floor.
Yeah.
So we're kind of shuffling. I will add, because I would be curious if you guys have thoughts on this. One of our other local, not within our business, but another local co-work space that focused on nonprofits has closed. And they reached out to us to help support their members if people were still needing a space to have a place to transition into, which we're working on, but it is a different member base than how we had originally situated Base 110 to be. So our original target audience or focus of members was people in tech, creatives, and entrepreneurs. So it's still pretty broad. But then in the nonprofit realm, it kind of opens it up into a lot of different other kind of industries and business types. So we're working on figuring out a plan for that. So it's kind of a blessing with the timing of everything. But you know, that's one of the considerations that we're having to make, especially with a lot of space being available now, is how do we maintain the brand and the audience that we had originally slated for Base 110, but adapt to be able to pay our rent and bills and make money, you know?
Sure.
So we've had a lot of conversations on how to shift. Some of it's been presented to us and some of it we've had to think through. So
Right.
I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on expanding kind of your like target audience for your spaces, if you've ever worked with having a little bit more of a unique niche.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting challenge, and it's one that a lot of folks deal with. And fortunately, it sounds like the one that you're dealing with isn't the worst, in the sense that we're not talking about um, what happens with a lot of space owners is they have way less customers than they thought they would, or than they need, and then basically their values disappear very quickly because they just have to get somebody to come in and pay the rent, and then you end up with like cold callers, and you get like sales teams and stuff in there that's like really gonna kind of drain on the culture.
Mhm.
But nonprofit people, maybe that's not so much of an issue, because at the end of the day, nonprofit people, basically are still running small businesses. Ultimately, a nonprofit is still a business, and they still use technology to do that. But do they have, more specific needs that are a little bit different from what you're used to? Probably. So what I'm wondering is there a way that you could bridge this a little bit to get a vibe for what it could look like to integrate the communities, because it seems like it could fill in this giant blank that just came through, right? And it kind of makes sense. um, and so we have to kind of understand two things. One is like, who are these people actually, and what is their culture like? And then we want them to understand, who are we and what are we like. And if they're totally incompatible, fine. If they're partially compatible, cool. If they're super compatible, great. But the best way for us to find out is to find out, to play with it a little bit, you know. So what I'm wondering is there a way to work with that organization to do some kind of a mixer? um, could you, and I'm guessing this is going to be virtual. I guess you could try to do something distanced in person, but could you do a virtual mixer together, cross promote it to both of your communities, and really try to hand invite, like, some of your favorite people from each, or some of the people you think would maybe to be the best ambassadors. Like, is there somebody in your space who's pretty nonprofity? Is there someone in their space that's pretty techy? Um, and see if you just get like everybody together for an hour and go around the table and just have people introduce themselves, and talk about what's been going on in their world, and maybe a little icebreaker, just see what the vibe is like culturally. And and then that will probably help guide you a lot, right?
Yeah.
I would say that the other thing that's like a pretty high energy thing to do, it's very visible. Another thing you could try to do is just do that in a more personal way, to go to them and say, like, hey, who are your favorite members? Like, who are some people you think I should talk to? And just try to have some one-on-one conversations with a handful of the clients at their space. Um, get some names, get some emails, research the companies, and you know, go on a few business dates and just catch a vibe. And it might. What I'm thinking is that each co-working community has its own cultural dynamics and its own super members and its own whatever. And if we could get to the super members of their communities, first of all, maybe you just peel away a few members and that's fine. And let's try to get the best ones, right? But if you can talk to the right people, they'll give you intel on the rest of the community. And they'll probably be a little bit more like, my friend likes to say their light is on. So they'll be able to like process this notion of like, hey, I'm trying to figure out, you're in this community that's coming apart. I have this place. I wonder if y'all could be over here, but I don't know. And that person, if you get the right person in their space, would be able to process that in their head to be like, oh yeah, well, it could work, but blah 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 blah, and like, help you to kind of like bridge that gap. And the right people in their space will be able to understand those dynamics well enough to kind of help give you the intel. And then if you get them on board as kind of leaders, um, then they might be able to bring the rest of the crew over, if it's appropriate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great tips. I mean, some of the concerns I have are, it was run very differently than our space, and it had passed through quite a few interim director hands, and so it's unfortunately on their side. I think there's just a lot of chaos amongst, like, on top of COVID and everything else. So the first impressions I get are that it's very disorganized, and so there wasn't much structure that these members were used to. So now we're coming in and we're trying to fit their needs into our structure, but it's new to them and it's different, and it's different price points, it's a different, space.
Yeah.
And I totally get that some of them, it just might not be a good fit, and I don't want to force something just because of the circumstance.
Yeah.
And I think, some people are going to be turned off with the price point, and some people are going to want to have a space with more structure because it will give them that stability that they might not have had before. So, I mean, I think it's a mixed batch. Our plan was, so we have like a dedicated desk office. So some of our larger offices, we do dedicated desks in, and it can hold like 4 to 6 members. So we were going to do a nonprofit dedicated desk, and then there's like a handful of offices around it. So depending on their price point, how large they were, we could kind of all keep them within the same space on the same floor. So they still have that community where they're neighbors, but then they're inside our larger community.
Yeah.
And it gives them the options of the scalability depending on kind of their needs. So I'm hoping
Sure.
that will be kind of a good fit. Some of them are just needing a business address. So they're starting with like our virtual office, getting a feel for kind of our community, and then hopefully we can kind of bring them in longer term.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot of potential, but because of everything, I feel like we have a lot of directions, and
Yeah.
I'm still trying to hold true to who we are without just coming across as like, all right, we're pivoting.
Yeah.
It's pivoting because we're being business smart, not because we're freaking out.
I'm thinking that we try to embrace this more from the perspective of where there's opportunity to create some new possibilities. And so you're not just desperately grabbing onto some other space's old customers just to stick them in your space and pay rent, because ultimately that could end up costing you more in the long run. So we don't want to, even if you do feel some financial desperation, we try to kind of like put that on the back burner, that we don't come with that attitude, right?
Right.
And so instead, what I'm thinking is, and something you brought up, which is really important, is if there was a lot of mismanagement in the old space or a lot of issues, that's that's valuable to you, because that means those people might see this as a chance for a clean slate, for things that could be done a little differently. And so what you could potentially do is reach out to those members, or reach out through your connection there, right? To say, hey, if you would indulge me, tell me a little bit about your experience in that space. What did you like? What would you have liked to have seen done differently? What would you be excited to see different about, a different situation? And then, see what people say.
Yeah.
And and then what you'll find is in that space, in what they respond, you'll see things that might be really awesome that would work, that would overlap for you. And you might see some things that are like, oh man, this definitely doesn't fit, and that's fine, and then you could say, hey, what you're looking for doesn't fit for us, whatever, right? But what's exciting about where you're at right now is that the prospect of them coming into your space in this vacated space is a possibility space. And if you can let them know, hey, what happens in this space is the realm of possibility right now. So if you tell me what you want and it's not incompatible with what we want, then maybe just maybe we can make that a reality together. And that I think would make them really excited to pay you if they can, if what you have to offer aligns, if it's possible. Um, but we don't have the information yet. So what engaging in that dialogue could help. Um, it probably still helps in terms of efficiency if you can go to your counterpart there and just say, hey, can you put me in touch with like three of your favorite members, a handful of your top, like the ones that you think have the best, beat on the community. And let me just like get on the phone with them for 20 minutes and just chat a little bit and then use that as a starting point. But then maybe the phase two is, doing a more direct call, even to your counterpart to just send them a paragraph to say like, hey, I'm Meredith at Base 110. I'd love to know, if you would reach out to me. I have a few questions about your experience to see if you guys might be a good fit for us. And then, have them pass that along to their members. Um, and then use that to gather more information. And then probably phase three is that like mixer event, if you really think that it's a serious possibility. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I would say that like it's probably worth putting a little extra effort into, in particular because you just had that big loss, um, to just see if maybe it could be a win. And I would think in the worst case scenario, you get a handful of awesome members that would be a good fit, and just you know bringing on even one super member, um, could be a massive uh, boost to your community. And I remember this when I was running my space that there were certain members, certain people I knew where I said, I gotta have this person. Like I'm gonna wine them and dine them. I'm gonna talk to them about their hopes and dreams. I'm gonna put some effort into really making them feel like what they want to do in their path is something I will invest my energy in ensuring they can achieve through my community, because their energy in this space is going to bring me so much more, right? And the right person is going to increase
It's
retention.
exciting.
They're going to bring in some new cultural stuff, some new energy. They might just bring in a whole slate of new customers just by being the effervescent people that they are.
Okay.
And if that old space has 50 customers and one of those people is that
Okay.
person, I
Yeah,
want to
we'll
figure out who that
I'll,
person is
I'll
and
set
get
you
them
up
there,
with
and then they'll be worth,
the
they'll be worth
with the
10 of
smart
the other
lock,
ones.
so you can just come in 24.
So
Yeah.
I muted Justin. um,
Yeah.
you get it. You get what I'm saying.
No, that's
Uh,
helpful. And I mean, I think there is some really great parts about their community, and they reached out to us to kind of look for a solution. So we've been, like trying to partner on that together. So I mean, I think in the long run, I hope that we can find a nice kind of supportive community there and help them kind of solve some of their problems. So maybe that will help balance a little bit of the chaos out to make them feel welcome and like a little bit of a relief, hopefully. But we shall see.
yeah. Well, and actually coming back to this direction that I keep trying to push, if you give them even just a way to have some kind of entry level opportunity to connect to each other through your network, they don't need to necessarily be a perfect match for the co-working space to still be a part of the community and still have maybe their own sub community, right? So you could have like the nonprofit, goal setting breakfast, Tuesdays at 10, and it's just for those people hanging out over video or over Slack or over the phone or
Yeah.
whatever. And then they could be their own sub community within your framework, something like that.
Yeah, and I mean that fits kind of. We have a sub community of a writers group in our space, So that's kind of like a writers co-op. So they have their own membership that then runs through us. So I mean, it's not a completely new kind of platform for us. So it's just adapting to just this kind of different market. So I think it's doable, and it won't be a huge departure from what we've kind of structured already. And we support those kind of sub communities because we still think that there's a lot of value within the community. And I think focusing on community now is huge for everybody. And
Sure.
to be able to say like, hey, just because you're in the nonprofit realm, that doesn't mean that all of the other resources that we already have built in can't be a support system for you too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. Yeah, and just kind of going through your website now, I'm seeing that uh, so like the base, the core website is essentially the same in terms of the membership offering and all of that. But in the blog, you have the work from home membership that you introduced in April, just 2 months
Yeah.
ago now. And I see in that it looks like you've got it's basically a pay what you can model, right? $25 a month. Is that basically right?
Yeah,
And
and we've
then
actually we still offer that, but with everything we've also combined our virtual office to include the work from home benefits. Since we've seen an increase in people who are needing a business address, we're also
yeah,
offering everything from the work from home included in that membership, so they can start to actually get involved in the community, and then hopefully that can be like a segue into them actually coming to the space if that's an option. So
right,
you know, we've listened to seeing what the needs are over the past couple months and seeing how things are changing, and trying to tweak some of those things to make it more valuable to the folks. So and we're
I'm,
working on really revamping all the website stuff too. So
are you?
don't
Yeah.
much.
What's the what kind of revamps are you looking to do?
Well,
I'm
you
just gonna pull it up on the screen while you talk, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very light website. There's not a ton. I'm in the process of switching out all of our photography because that first image is not very COVID friendly, and every time my boss and I look at it, we kind of cringe because we're like, oh, so many people. Um, but so we got new photography done, so I'm updating it to be current, and just show a little bit better representation of our space. Also, like, we just were really inconsistent in our terminology, so stuff that's in like our member agreement and that type of stuff isn't like your everyday language. So we're
Right.
working to just really educate people and make it more clear what you would be getting out of joining our community, and a bit more about the space. So
Right.
yeah, so like that's the newest page.
I
Um,
see some day house inspiration. I love it. I love
yeah.
it. It's great.
And
And
you
this
know,
is great. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, and I mean, I was so excited about this, and honestly, like, we had really low participation on all of these new events. So
Yeah.
I've like leaned it down, and I'm hoping to be able to kind of expand it all. But you know, we're just trying a bunch of stuff and adapting, and just knowing that everything that we're trying we're just going to be really flexible and just you know, be aware that things are going to change. And we're lucky that, you know, if we can get people into the private offices, then we're going to be feeling comfortable, and then we can continue to kind of pivot on some other items. So
Right.
yeah.
Meredith, can you remind me kind of what you're like? How have people been finding you historically? Where do you kind of invest your marketing energy?
So the majority of our current members either find us by word of mouth or through Google searches. And our marketing budget goes towards Google, and then through, in the past, it's been predominantly Facebook, and I'm working to expand that into Instagram and LinkedIn. Yeah, so
Nice.
I've been trying to watch, you know, like, we're doing a lot of research on like keywords and making
Yeah.
sure that like the terminology we're using actually mimics like how people are searching for the space. Because surprisingly enough, like, people don't know what co-working is, and that like blew
Yeah.
my Like,
Yeah.
the number of times I'd be like, so, like send me an inquiry and they'd be like, okay, so I'm interested in a co-work membership. And I'm like, okay, so that's this. And they're like, no, that's not what I want. And I'm like, okay, well, these are what we can do, which is fitting your needs. And so there's always going to be this level of education that was a little surprising to me when I first started. And it's still like, even people in the kind of industry don't quite get it. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. So yeah, education has become kind of key. So you can kind of see like some of the newer posts I'm working on. We're focusing on 3 kind of main things. So just the overall private office. Our new floor, we're tailoring what you can see here to be like, we're calling it base 110 professionals, but like attorneys or some marketers or people who are needing more like client-based meeting spaces, but also need kind of a home base for their office. So like single private practice or 1 to 3 kind of team members.
Right.
Then we also adapted some of our meeting spaces to be what we're calling huddle rooms. So we're making them being really flexible. We're doing half day, full day, and then packages of like slots that teams can do. And the idea is, with businesses moving to be mostly remote,
Yeah.
how can we provide a solution? Because there are going to be team needs where you need to be like in a space together. So having this flexible new space to kind of adapt and fit those needs, which I'm actually pretty excited about those spaces.
That's great. I feel like y'all have like a lot going for you here, a lot of stuff that you can talk about. And it sounds like maybe, do you think that it's a matter of just reaching the right people and reaching more of them more than converting them at this point?
We definitely need a broader reach. I mean, I think, within our networks, we're pretty like well known, but I think there's a shift in potential members with just everything that's going on. And so I've been trying to figure out how to market to that, to like, bringing in the personal element instead of it being like, hey, we have office space and we have co-work space and we have virtual memberships, like talking about like what have you learned about your work habits having to work from home, or like take back your kitchen table, like these things are like the multitasking or, like the really human elements of everything.
Yeah.
Makes, I think, it way more relatable. And that also, I think, is a very genuine way for us to talk to people. So instead of just like being really pitchy about it, just being like, we get it, we've had to work from home too, like it's frustrating when you have noise in your yard guy, which you probably heard, like all of these things like going on that are distractions that are keeping you from, achieving your goals. How can we be a solution without it being just like so in your face?
Right. Yeah. 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 Cause I feel like there's a lot here, and it's just a matter of kind of figuring out where we can like make something that's more enticing and then get it in front of the right people.
Right.
And just for example, I see that you've got that event that I put up on the screen earlier, which is the WIFL monthly meetup.
Wiffle.
Wiffle, Wiffle,
Yep.
which looks like a nice kind of like cross promotion between what you're doing and that other organization. Is that right?
Yeah, so I co-founded Wiffle with another community organizer that we partner with a lot of startup work. And we realized, it just came out of conversations we had where we realized there was not a great representation of women in business in a lot of the entrepreneur and startup events that we attended. And also that, there's just a different experience being a woman trying to be in a startup or even being a leader in business. And so we wanted to provide a community to do that. And we used to do in-person meetups, but since COVID, we've transitioned to Zoom. And we've actually learned a lot because we've been able to present and share a lot more about the community. So that's one of the nice things about the space is we're able to kind of have that opportunity to create those types of like hybrid meetups, you know, where it's with us, but then it's also has a bigger narrative.
Yeah, I feel like that's great. So in terms of kind of how you're approaching it now, are you going to be putting any do you have a plan as far as where you're going to put additional effort into? Like what kind of marketing direction that you want to like throw your effort behind?
So my focus the last week has been creating new language for like these new offerings. So the Base 110 professionals are private offices in these huddle rooms. So I've been building out, so I have new landing pages that the ads will point to get people onto our website and then to get in contact with me. And then I'm trying to expand the reach. So having them on the different social media platforms, trying to just get, you know, like Facebook's great, but I think we're missing a huge market, especially in LinkedIn, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, no, we just didn't really have a big, well, anybody dedicated to marketing before I came on. And so, and we've always had a fairly like light budget. So I'm trying to figure out how to be lean but effective, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you on that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, maybe in a future conversation, even just next week, we can kind of go into that in more detail
Sure.
and see where we can make some adjustments to how you approach it. Because you know, I think if you can strike the right balance of kind of meeting people where they're at, offering something that's enticing and kind of entry level enough, then we'll start to build more of a pipeline. And um, you know, there's kind of like I think two ways to sell in co-working, which is kind of what I'm hearing is like you need a specific thing, we will offer you that thing. You need a huddle room, you need a private office, whatever. Like when you look for it, you find us, we sell it to you, done. And then there's that other realm, which is just like the work from home person who's going crazy and needs to get out of the house and blah blah blah. And that's more of a long term, like we want to warm them up to the idea that this is a community they can be a part of, and how can we build that pipeline through some of the existing programming that you're doing or some of the new programming, and how do you emphasize that? So like the thing that I want to emphasize for all co-working spaces during COVID is um, you know, as you consider like changes to your website, right, how can I put an invitation right up front that says like we're getting together in a way that's remote friendly, right? Um, and here's where you can come join us and meet us and check it out. And so even if you're not ready to give us money today, even if you don't even know if you're interested in membership, you can come join for this awesome program we have coming up, and give us your email and you'll get the invite, right? And so right away you're capturing their information and giving them an on ramp to connecting to your community, and that lets you market to them infinitely for eternity going forward until they cry uncle and unsubscribe, right? And so you know, maybe something you could keep in mind, maybe something we could play with some more as you look into it, because when I was going into your website, what I saw on the homepage was like, oh, these people are just renting workspace. And it wasn't until I kind of caught it. I didn't even see it in the navigation, but then on the second viewing, I saw the work from home membership. But seeing all that programming, I was like, wow, this programming looks awesome. Maybe you're not doing all of it anymore. But even if one of those programs still is the one that you think really hits, if I just surface that program and put it right at the beginning of the website, you know, to say like, hey, we're a co-working space. Here's one way you can come hang out with us right away. And by the way, here's where you can learn about all the stuff we're renting. That way, you know, for the people who are nervous about COVID, if COVID becomes more of an issue down the line, you're building that momentum in a more, you know, space agnostic kind of way. Anyway, so maybe we talk more about it down the line. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really great. Thanks so much, Jenny.
Yeah, you got it. Cool. All right. I know we kind of spent a lot of time in that, but I do want to get back to Maddie and Justin and just talk a little bit about the current setup and how to reach those people. And Justin, I guess I want to throw it to you quick because you've been in the business for a little while now, and I'm curious what how you would answer the question if I were you and you were me, in terms of saying, how how are you finding that people outside of your area are reaching and are able to be reached? Like, do you have to go into LA? Do you have to go partner with somebody who has a community there, or can you simply be attracting the people who are looking for you, or is it something else? What's your vibe on it?
Um, so I could tell you what we've seen so far and kind of some of my thoughts on it. I mean, what we've seen so far is we've been around for 2 years, and um, it's and there's people that come up that've been coming up every single summer for the last 40 years, and so over the last couple of years, the last couple of summers, they've been coming up and they've been seeing these flyers around town. Now we've got signs up. They've and they've been hearing about this co-working space. So we started having people that would drop in, stop by and say, "Hey, what is this? I didn't know that you guys had anything like this here." They'll do a tour and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I'll take advantage of that sometime." And then we see them the next summer. So we've already now started seeing people that took tours last summer and the summer before, starting to come in now and be like, "This is great. We planned our whole vacation around being able to have a workspace to work out of." So it's kind of, to a certain extent, become a little bit of a "if you build it, they will come" kind of moment. It doesn't scale very well. It doesn't. It's good to know that that the market is there. It's good to know that the demand is there. That with just a little tiny investment that we put into getting the word out to people that are coming here anyways, that that they're finding the value in it.
Right,
Um, and that's part of the reason why we're also targeting right now the coffee shops and the campgrounds, um, and probably going to be doing the eateries as well. Just that, again, we're kind of capturing that captive market of these people that decide, oh well, I can work from home, so why not rent an RV and go up into the mountains for a while, and I'll just work out of there. And then they realize when they get up there, an RV is a really crappy place to work out of, especially when you've got kids
yeah,
around and stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, so we can capture that kind of captive market. But what I'm really hoping to do is to kind of find a way um, of trying to find those, people in those high demand jobs that are very remote friendly, that kind of have an outdoor streak in them. And there's this whole spectrum that we can do. I'll share with you, like, I talked to the director of the Current Economic Development Corporation, and he's a real big picture guy, right? They're the ones that negotiate these massive tax discounts for like Amazon to come in and stuff like that. Um, and so he shared this like Tulsa remote thing where if you are a remote worker, Tulsa wants to pay you like $10,000 to move there.
right.
Um, and some of these other things like reverse scholarships where they'll give you a scholarship to move back to your hometown and stuff like that. But that's kind of the other far side of the spectrum. That's like, you have to get like the county government in on it, and in a year where their budgets are wiped out. um so then, like, what's the middle ground? How do we get out there? Things like Facebook are it it feels like you're just kind of, I think, kind of like Meredith was saying, like, you're kind of just like shooting stuff out there into the void. LinkedIn is a lot more targeted. It's a lot more of a professional community, but I in terms of reaching these people, I'm a little bit lost.
So, how many of them, people who are like this? People who are kind of like transplants in this way, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so we've got an Airbnb up above us. There's people staying right now. They're closing on escrow today. Like, they moved into our Airbnb for 2 months straight so they could buy a house here. The day they move out of our Airbnb, there's another group moving in for a month because they're wanting to move here. The day they move out, we have another group that's moving into the Airbnb to move here. Like, there's a ton of demand. And in fact, some of the people you see walking around in the background are those types that, they're um, they're working from they came up from LA, working here during the week, and like getting jobs as raft guides over the weekend because it's something fun that they can do. Whitewater rafting, by the way.
Wow. So I'm sure that you've thought of this already, but are you using that Airbnb listing to advertise your co-working space?
Yeah. So to a certain extent, it's it's listed as apartment with co-working, and the co-working's included. Um, and that's kind of just kind of a passive advertisement to kind of get those people that are kind of perusing through Airbnb for their next adventure. Um, it's been moderately successful. Most people, it's kind of hard to know. I have had a few people say, "Oh, hey, I saw your Airbnb's not available," but then it said it had a co-working space. Can I rent the co-working space if I don't
Yeah,
rent to the Airbnb? So we've had a couple of those.
right. Um, yeah, because I'm just thinking that the if we can get a better sense of kind of like what are the patterns, where are these people coming from, how can we be like going to where they're going to the source, so if
Mhm.
they're showing up at your place, can you ask them questions that tell you a little bit about where they were before they ended up where you are, right? That you might be able to get a better sense of where there's where the source is, where there's more people like that.
Mhm.
um otherwise I feel like we're talking about going into, and is it mostly people from LA, or is it people from other places too that end up in Kernville? Like just
Um,
thinking about your current customer, your historic customer base.
Bakersfield's somewhat popular, which is about an hour drive, hour and a half. And then the next real big one is LA. We do get some traffic down here from San Francisco, but I don't think that that's really happened. We haven't seen much from San Francisco since the shutdown.
Yeah,
But LA, we're just close enough to where people can get here on a tank of gas, and I've been talking to the district ranger for the Forest Service. Southern California, anywhere like within a 3 to 4 hour drive from LA, is just getting hammered right now. All the other national parks are empty. Like
I see.
Zion is empty. Northern California, a lot of those are empty. Like people are wanting to go to the place that they don't have to drive very far to get to.
Yeah,
They want to take a gas. That's basically the limit, it seems like.
I'm wondering if there's like a more like a, I don't want to say viral, but like a really kind of like assertive marketing message that can really speak to kind of the exact vibe that people are feeling now. And maybe you can discern some of the language of that from the people that you talk to. Um, and man, I hate to go this direction, but I even feel like there's some Facebook targeting to be done here. If you could get not necessarily Facebook, but like just like internet advertising. That if
Mhm.
we can get the right notion of the geography and the background and the mindset of the kind of people you want to reach, just to be able to say, okay, if I know generally speaking that you know relatively high income earning tech savvy LA residents ages 30 to 40 are like the prime people who are like sick of living there and interested in coming out. And if I can just hammer them with the exact language of what they're probably feeling right now, which is like sick of being stuck in LA with nothing to do, come out into nature and get work done, save money, make money,
Mhm.
be happy, get some fresh air, live your life, click here to learn more, and then maybe find some way to engage them in a way that isn't just selling them co-working space because they're probably not ready to make that decision. So
Mhm.
find what that other level of engagement could be. I don't know. I always try to get away from like traditional advertising, but I feel like if you can, if you end up through examining the people that you've already found, you could find some geo targeting, opportunities. Maybe there's something
Mhm.
there. Um, or even like retargeting people who have searched for things in your area. Um, I don't know, how much time have you spent with that kind of stuff, like internet advertising, Facebook pixels, things like that?
Very, very little. I've got some moral qualms with Facebook specifically, but we, in terms of paid advertising, we've done almost none. Um, we've done some kind of grassroots Facebook stuff. We've done some, grassroots LinkedIn stuff. But
Right,
yeah, but not,
right,
we haven't really paid. You haven't done any paid advertisements really to speak of.
right. Yeah. So I mean, I'm with you on the moral side of it for sure. Obviously, um, just thinking about other creative ways. I think at that point, then you're talking more about like, organic search and, trying to find what are other things people are looking for or talking about online where you can try to make yourself more visible. Um,
Hmm.
are there communities in LA and Bakersfield where you can be active and visible, not to advertise, but just to build relationships and build cred? Just for example, I have a friend in LA, Esprit Devora, who runs the Women in Tech podcast. I don't know if you've come across her in your travels at all. Um,
Maybe.
but she is like a super active podcaster in the LA area, right? And she's all about entrepreneurs, specifically women, but she's a very just well-known figure in that area. And I feel like she just happens to be somebody I know, but like if you like engaged with her and other people like her and found your way into her network and into her communities such that people knew that some of her people knew that you existed, then that could lead to a nice pipeline. And actually, this is the kind of gangster thing to do. This is something that like Vaynerchuk would do. Is you find people like that. You find like an Esprit who might be a stressed out Los Angeles tech influencer and be like, hey, come come spend a free weekend in Kernville. I'll give you the Airbnb for free retreat, right? And basically just because I want to make good relationships, want to get the word out about what's going on here, but no strings attached. That could be kind of gangster if you've got the Airbnb time for it to spare.
Hmm.
And I'm sure just knowing people like Esprit that would, you know, you send that invite to 10 of the right people and you might get a few answers. And that could be a really neat way to kind of forge some connections and have the people who have the local connections where your people are, where your prospective people are, to kind of end up becoming you know, your amplifiers or your evangelists from that area. I like that idea. That is my favorite idea yet.
Yeah, like the and the amplifiers idea. We're kind of trying to find ways of doing that locally, but I like the idea of trying to get, because I mean honestly, like you get into one travel blog or travel podcast or one type blog or type podcast, like this whole kind of like it's a hot topic right now, and the articles about it are really engaging. Kind of this, they sell this kind of utopia of being able to work your dream job but also live in your dream kind of atmosphere and surroundings. And that's something I think that people really connect to. If we can find somebody who can tell that story for us that already has a following, that's really where, um, yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I'll bet that there are people who would be excited to just have a conversation with you. And one of the things I keep coming back to this, but one of the things we can always try to come back to, and I mentioned this with Meredith, with the super members in that community, is you're a leader. You're an entrepreneur and you're a leader, and that puts you in a good standing with other entrepreneurs and leaders with whom you can have some sense of kind of camaraderie. So you can just say, hey, look, like I'm really curious about where people are at as far as wanting to escape the city and be able to experience nature. I'm out in it. I might have a perspective to provide. I'd love to learn more. Maybe we can parlay a little bit here and learn from each other. Would that be interesting to you? And if you're not too far off target, somebody's going to be up for that conversation. Um, so yeah, I'd be curious to see who in that area, maybe old friends in the area who are local influencers or friends of friends that you can get a hold of. Um, and heck, maybe I could try to get you in touch with my friend. I
Yeah,
would
that'd
I
be
wouldn't
great.
mind I wouldn't mind an excuse to reach out to her anyway.
All right. Yeah, I'll hit you up after this.
Cool. Good. Great. All right, y'all. How we feeling? We ready to kick some ass this week? Very good. Okay. Anybody have a pet with insight that we can sign off with? Meredith? Yeah. All right.
No,
Excellent. Oh.
he's left
No, I
me.
had some.
Ah. Damn.
There's some upstairs that just came down earlier, but yeah, they're gone.
Damn. No living creatures. All right. Well, that's okay. We'll save it for next time. Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure chatting. Keep doing great work. I'll see you in a week.
Thanks, Tony.
All right. Take
Thanks.
care and happy 4th.
Bye.
All right. Bye.